Well, let's just talk about the newsletter for a second. I just want to brainstorm with you guys and point out something that was kind of cool that happened this week. These newsletters right now, they've just evolved over time, the structure. There's a lot in here. And here's the office hours announcement. We don't announce topics now. We just say it's office hours, come and ask questions. I don't think people want to come to a webinar with open-ended questions. They want to just like email them. So maybe if we just shift this and make it a product each week, I think that would be a good use of time. Here's what I wanted to show you. So we sent out this newsletter this week, and the topic is basically creating better calls to action. We talked about this in our weekly meeting, but the subscribe button in the weekly newsletter, Jack created this example and has all this information about how you can add a simple subscribe button. And then he's got a call to action at the end that if you want to get this in place on your newsletter, just email ops. And so what happened is we usually get about half of our audience opening the newsletter. So, it's like 400 publishers on the newsletter list. Half of them open it. And then some small percentage click on something. It was only a few people that clicked on this, but they clicked learn more. And that was the end of it. They got to this page and then they didn't do anything. So we had this idea. I'm wondering how we could apply this to publishers and maybe automate something similar like this, where we could just send a quick follow-up based on the engagement. So we sent this out. We noticed that you took the time to check out our latest blog post. So there's a link to it again, just to remind them. Obviously, they remember opening it. They may not have read much of it, but this is just another touch point offering to take it to the next step. We can help you set it up. Just reply to this email rather than saying, go to your email and email ops. You can just reply here. But it did generate a response this week. Did you happen to see that, Vera, from Connie?
Yes, I sent it over to Jack. I tried doing it myself, but the way that their newsletter is set up, so I sent it to him.
Yeah, I mean, this is just great customer support. She was just on an old newsletter, but if she had tried to do this herself, it would have been difficult. So we were very proactive. We asked her twice, raised the topic, and then directly asked her the next day if she wanted help with it. We only sent that follow-up email to like 3 people because those were the only people that clicked on the link about the subscribe button. And 1 out of 3 of them took us up on it. So that's just a great marketing principle, to use multiple layers of emails and get more and more targeted with each one. You want to be casting a wide net, but then only follow up with the people that are engaging. You don't want to keep emailing the whole group. Do you guys have any thoughts on how this could be used by a local newspaper? I have a concept that I want to share with you, but any thoughts based on the tools that we have? Any way that the newspaper could basically follow up on their weekly newsletter a little bit better?
I think that should be the standard, what you just exampled here. Because if you go to any reputable company, not just newspapers, you'll get your confirmation, they'll follow up with you. That's just really good customer service, but it also shows that you care about the subscriber base. You want to follow up. We noticed you clicked this article. What do you think about it? There's so many different avenues you can take with this.
Well, let me just focus right in on something that you said there that makes you feel like they care. And I think there's definitely, people have a pretty good sense of this is a newsletter that's being blasted out to a lot of people. And they can just tell looking at it. It has their email in it, but it's called a publisher newsletter. And a lot of newspapers call it the weekly newsletter. So a newsletter has a distinctly unpersonalized feel. This is highly personalized. It's saying, we hear you, you showed interest in this. For our publishers, I want them to know that I can see what you're clicking on and you can see what your readers are clicking on because I'm using the same tools as you. But something along these lines, I think, could be created very easily with our related stories tool. So if we go to Henrico, so on every article on most of our sites now, we use related articles, that they're recommended stories, and we're generating this list based on the content of the current article. So what we could do maybe is every time a newsletter is created, it's got, let's say, 10 articles from the current edition. Then the system would need to automatically create like 10 newsletter follow-ups that would go to the people that open those emails. And each of those second newsletters would have another 3 or 4 articles that are just being pulled from the related stories database. So it's just kind of saying, did you enjoy this article? Here's more about it. Even as I describe it, it's getting tricky, because what if they click on 2 articles in that newsletter? We don't want to send them 2 separate newsletter follow-ups. We really want one that combines those 2 topics mentioned in those 2 articles, maybe, and like finds the most related articles to those 2. You'd probably want 2 sections in the newsletter. You showed interest in these topics. Here's some more related to each of them. I just think it would be worth developing as an automated tool, because this is probably too much to do it manually, unless you just did it for like 1 story in each newsletter, which is what we did here.
Could you do something like adding, like we saw that you read this article, what did you think? And put like a like button. And then to see more of these, like it. Yeah.
On the follow-up email. Yeah. Well, we've talked about adding like buttons on articles, but there's just so many opportunities that we have for building profiles on readers. This would just be another signal in the mix. I think we could do it even today without those profiles because of the tracking in the newsletter system. I'll just show you how it's done really quick, I guess, and we'll make a little tutorial out of this. It's really simple. So we send the first newsletter, and then you go to the stats of your main newsletter. So let's just imagine we're a newspaper. We print on Thursdays, so the newsletter comes out Thursday morning with all the top headlines. Here's the original one that went out to all our customers. Let's look at the stats. And again, I'm using the exact same plugins that are on all our WordPress sites. So you would just come in here and do some retargeting. So if you want to just send a follow-up email with more articles that are related to that top story, you would say retargeting with the clicks. You could also do it with the opens. Now, with the opens, that might make sense if your subject of your newsletter was a certain topic. And then we want to follow up with people that open that newsletter because they read the subject. Every URL in the newsletter is going to have its own area where you can assign it to a list. So they make it very easy. There is this manual step that you would have to take before your follow-up email goes out. But what I would recommend, what we did here is we send our publisher email out Tuesday morning. We wait 24 hours. Then we come in here and say, anyone that opened the subscribe button link or clicked on it, we're going to add them to a new list. So you can just create a new list for this week and then put those 4 emails on it. And for a newspaper, it'll probably be a lot more than 4 that clicked on it. And then you would go in and create your new newsletter. So let's just back up to that. That's going to be on just the newsletter page. I kind of like the idea of the follow-up email just looking different than the first one. But I specifically asked Jack, and just make it look like a more personalized follow-up. And then here it is in here. You see it only sent to 3 people that opened that link. We can look at those stats too. This one was interesting. There was a bunch of related articles to click on. In this case, the targets did not click on any of those related stories, but one person, as we said, Connie, did reply to the email. So that she took a call to action. It's not something that we can measure in here, but another thing you could have there is just like a button to contact support, and then we could actually measure it as a click. I think it's something that we're going to just continue to explore and see if it has any value as a marketing tool just in general, but then we'll see if it's something we could implement to help newspapers with engagement. Thanks for watching Today in News Tech, the podcast covering innovation in digital journalism. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast apps. We'll see you tomorrow.
At our hometown, we help newspapers build WordPress websites, design native apps, and develop digital subscription models. If you are interested in a free prototype of your publication on WordPress, go to ourhometown.com and click the Contact Us button.